Hey, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. It is February 9th, Monday. And this episode is brought to you by Earthquaker Devices, my amazing sponsor over 1 year on Let There Be Talk. Earthquaker Devices, the best guitar pedal made in the world. You play guitar, bass, keyboards, you play any kind of music, jazz, fusion, funk, rock, metal, hip-hop, anything. You need some pedals for your instruments. Go to earthquakerdevices.com. Talk to them. Tell them I sent you. All the best pedals in the world. Every guitar player on the planet uses pedals. You need good ones. You don't want them to break down on the road. Crappy pedals break down, man. You don't want to be on stage, go bust a solo, your pedal's all crackly and shitty. Get a great pedal. Earthquaker Devices, made in Akron, Ohio, right where Devo's from, king of the pedals, Devo. Devo, they just fucking glued pedals right onto their guitars. They're so badass. Check them out. They got delays, reverbs, boosts, preamps, fuzz, overdrive, modulations, compressions, octaves, everything. Earthquaker Devices are fucking cool. Also, we're going to have the owner on the show here in a couple months, so get ready for that, you gear nerds. And they also have incredible t-shirts. Earthquaker Devices. Hit them up online. Tell them I sent you. We got to support them, man. They help this podcast. Without them, this shit might not be happening. Let There Be Talk. So thank you, Earthquaker Devices. Okay, great episode today. This is a fantastic episode, man. Perfect guest to have on today because it's all about rock and roll. You saw the Grammys yesterday. AC/DC kicked that off. And hats off, Brian Johnson. I keep saying this over and over. Somehow he has found his vocals again and sings incredible. That was live shit there on the Grammys. They played Rock or Bust and Highway to Hell. And just, you know, you're down to one original member, Angus. Angus Young, guitar. Holding it down. You can see he's just like the leader now. And, God, they sound great. Chris Slade back on drums. Remember him? He played with DC after Simon Wright. And, you know, I felt weird about it at first, but after I saw the Grammys, I was like, who cares, man? This shit sounds great. It's going to sound even better. And like the LA Forum on 10 turned up with fucking Marshalls blaring. I mean, Highway to Hell sounded great, right? They just sounded fucking cool. Brian Johnson looks great. He sounds great. And, man, just fucking badass. Yeah, they're the last. They're turning down the last. You know, you got the Ramones. As far as bands that just do exactly what they've done forever, Ramones, Slayer, AC/DC, they've always stayed the same, never changed. And when AC/DC's gone, there's never, ever going to be another one. Ever. I've said it over and over. I don't need to talk about it anymore. But wow, that was great. As soon as they were done, I'd love to get the numbers of how many TVs turned off the second the last note Angus hit on Highway to Hell. It had to just be like, bloop, change the channel to, what was that? What's the show? Call Saul, Better Call Saul. I haven't got a chance to see that yet, but I wonder what the turn off, you know, and they got that number. The second it's just like, I'm on the highway to hell, gunk. Change the channel. Oh, man, everyone was rocking. Everyone loves AC/DC. It doesn't matter your race, your flavor of music you love. If you like jazz, rock, soul, hip hop, doesn't matter where you grew up, you could see everyone in that audience. Old, young, medium, they all loved AC/DC. So getting back to my guest today, he is a guitar king himself, Mr. Dweezil Zappa. Welcome, Dweezil Zappa, to the show. He's going to be on today. And wow, what a great interview. I love Dweezil. I always dreamed of having a band with him back in the 80s. He could play Van Halen style guitar. Perfect. He's the nicest dude. He is, I mean, against all odds, you know, Hollywood kids could go either way. Either they become badasses and do their own thing, or they become on the wayside trust fund kids who just are garbage cans. And Dweezil, not the case. Hard worker. His whole family, they all work in the biz. They're all successful. No drug addicts. Great people. And I love that, man. I love that. And you got to think, there's only a few fathers you could have that could really put a giant shadow on you. And one would be like Jacob's dad, Bob Dylan. Another one is definitely Frank Zappa, king of the nerd rock, basically. You know, if you want to get into it, it's a niche, and it's a great niche because the people that like Zappa love fucking music. They love it. They love guitars, bass, drums. It doesn't. They just love music. And I've known Scott Tunis for years, who I had on this show, and he is a music genius. And most of the people that played with Zappa are music geniuses. You know, you don't just play in a Zappa band, Dweezil or Frank, and just be some dude, you know, from the recycler. Like, hey, I'm going to answer this ad. I'm going to go try out for Dweezil's band or Frank. Anyway, we have an incredible conversation. He's an amazing guy. And I wish I got to hang out with him more over the years, but, you know, people are busy. So check that out before I get into it. Have a great Valentine's Day this Saturday. And also everybody listening to Bitchin' every Thursday live. We do that at the All Things Comedy Studios. Me and Christian Spicer. You guys have seemed to be loving it. You can call in. You call in at noon Pacific time, California time, and we take all the calls. You can talk about anything on Let There Be Talk or life or sex, drugs, rock and roll, soul, where you live, whatever, your job. We don't give a fuck. We love to converse about stuff, so call in. The show's been awesome response. So, wow, thank you. We love doing it every Thursday. Also, this Wednesday will be my second week hosting the Jam Night at Lucky Strike in Hollywood and Vine there. What a great show this has been. It's free to get in every week, 9 to midnight. Gilby Clark has a full-blown jam night at the Lucky Strike Bowling Alley. And Stephen Perkins on drums. The thing is just insane. You got to check it out. So come down. I'm there every Wednesday. If you're in Hollywood or you're just on vacation, free to get in. You'll see insane stars jump up and sing with this band every Wednesday. Don't miss it. And follow them, Lucky Strike Jam, on Twitter. Lucky Strike Jam. We're having fun, man. Just holding up the rock torch. Light the candles of rock. I'm going to get out of your hair. Before I do, come see Mary Lane Rice Cub and me in La Jolla Comedy Store, February 20 and 21. And then February 25th, Red Band and I are having a huge Del Razor's Death Squad show, like kind of a late birthday party for me, with some insane comedians at the Comedy Store, February 25th. Make sure you get your tickets in advance. It will sell out in the main room. Death Squad and Del Razors unite! Here he is right now, Mr. Dweezil Zappa. Got another guest right now, my good friend, or old friend, kind of friend, Dweezil Zappa. How are you, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Good, man. I was trying to figure out how long. When I first met you, I talked to Scott about it at the Frank's Garage.
Joe's Garage.
Joe's Garage. I mean, I went down and watched you guys rehearse, and Josh was like 10. I remember I went in there, and you guys did that 150-song medley.
Yeah, it was 200 songs in 20 minutes.
It was insane. And then we went and had tacos up the street on like Lancashire.
Probably Ernie's Taco House.
That's where we went.
Yeah.
And it was fucking great day, man.
Yeah, that medley was something that we started originally because I think before we ever started really playing any shows as Z, the band I have with my brother Amit, we were just getting together and playing for fun, doing some things. And my sister Moon had a birthday party of some sort, and we played as like a 70s cover band, and we learned a bunch of material. But as we were learning this stuff, we said, why don't we just make a medley? And so it first started as like about put 30 songs together into this medley for this party, but then it just kept growing, and it became a 200 songs and 20. It's like the ultimate K-Tel mashup before any of that stuff ever happened.
It was radical. You got any recordings of that?
I do, but the thing is,
copyright.
When you're putting out a song that has 200 songs in it, it's really hard to deal with issuing that stuff. And if somebody has an objection to something, because sometimes we would change the arrangements on things, and Amit was always singing different lyrics, so it's just not worth the effort to do that and put it out.
It was cool because you guys figured out like you would land on words and songs.
Yeah, it was tricky because sometimes the keys were totally unrelated, and so you had to really focus on going from one thing you're playing and thinking ahead to the next thing, which was unrelated. But it was done in a way so that the words would match up to make a funny sentence.
Exactly.
But it was, as you're doing it, you go through 3 or 4 songs.
Yeah.
So it was a very twisted.
And how did you figure? I mean, you had to sit down there and figure out what tune you would do next, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was surprisingly not that complicated, just because we were all in the mindset of anything can happen at any time. So
right.
you just we'd think of certain songs that could go together, and we would just find the least obvious way to do it and just have it. So sometimes it would be a very smooth transition, and sometimes it would purposely be a very jarring transition, so that you were just left wondering how are they able to play that, because it's out of time and all kinds of stuff, but it's just like, weird random edits that
right.
So.
I remember just sitting on the couch in there, and I was just in this like street rock band, thinking I was like a badass. And then I'm just like, first thing I see is Josh Freese.
Yeah.
I think he's really like 17 at the time. Or I don't know.
Yeah. He was I think about 17 or 18. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, and later he told me, I had him on the show, that he said he did it a lot for looks, but he's like playing, and then he wants his jacket off, and he's smoking at the same time, so he puts a cigarette behind his ear, takes one sleeve off while keeping the beat, then the other sleeve off, then back to smoking. Then you got Scott Tunis over there, who's just reading the paper and blazing mad bass perfect, and then you like a guitar god, and then the other guy that was in the Zappa band
was Mike Keneally at the time.
Yeah. It's the song, he was looking at it going like, oh man, I suck. We're just thinking like, how the fuck are these guys, I mean, not Scott and the other guy, but you and Josh, how are you guys this age and so good,
It was a lot of practice.
A lot of practice. Which is funny, after that, I booked your guys at the Stone in San Fran, remember? And then we partied all night in the Phoenix Hotel. Hung out. We didn't party, and that's where I first saw those movies, the E.T. one. Yeah. And let's talk about that, because Scott, he loved talking about, but he didn't want to give away, that was like your glory, but you basically took films and redid the audio voices on them. Like what was that show? Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah.
Before that.
It was before that, yeah. There were these little projects I used to do, and this was, I guess, really early 90s, and I basically had a 4-track tape machine, and in between the 4-track tape machine was 2 VHS players, and so I just would route one through the machine and to the other, so that you could play the video and you would have the audio off from the first machine. And then you could add new audio on the way through to the next VHS machine, and that was the only way that I could overdub these things. And we would do live performances of the scenes that we wanted to overdub. So we'd just do this for fun at the house, and we got into doing it on different films, all different kinds, and one of them just sort of became this epic thing where we redubbed E.T., and the story was that E.T. was a lounge singer who was horribly marred in a radiation storm on Easter Island. And so he's noticed by Elliot, who finds him. He's out looking for his cat, but he's sees these weird big footprints, and he's going, "Here, kitty, here, kitty, kitty." But then he comes face to face in the weeds with E.T., and in the movie they're just screaming, "Ah!" But when they meet this way, the reeds pull open, and E.T. starts singing, "I love a parade." And then Elliot's like, "Oh my God, great singer, great singer." He's like, "Gotta go, baby," and he runs away. So then the kids left being excited about seeing this singer in the woods, and he goes home to tell everybody about the singer in the woods, and nobody believes him. And his older brother, whose name is Jazeus, decides, he's like, "Oh, I sing way better than him." And so there's all this ridiculous stuff that happens. But I had Jan Hooks do the voice of Dee Wallace Stone.
Yeah.
And she's just the mother who hates her kids. And she's
that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was super mean. Yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah, she's super mean and wants to do some cocaine and all this kind of stuff. And but it's everything wrong. Like all the most wrong things you could ever have happen are happening in that movie. And then, of course, we did other ones as well that were completely inappropriate.
Yeah, Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah, and that was probably my dad's favorite thing. Like, that was a crowning achievement. When I played that for him, he basically fell out of his chair, and he was on the floor pounding the floor. He was laughing so hard at what we had done to that movie.
I was laughing. I remember those two movies. It's weird. Like, I remember, it's weird. I did a lot of drugs back then, but I remember like the Key Zappa times, because I think I felt like we were just kids, and it was just fun and just weird. You know what I mean? Like, because I was like a city kid, and I remember first seeing you play, and I was like, man, if I could get that guy in my band, we would be the new Van Halen. Because I worshipped Van Halen at the time, and you loved it too.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe you're playing at the time. I couldn't find anybody that could play like that at my age. You could find dudes that were like 25, but when you're like 20, 25 seemed old. That guy's too old. Remember when they come audition? Not you guys, your band, because you had like guys from your dad's band, but me, like, that's the first thing. You go, too old. He's bald. He's fat. Everything's shallow as fucking rock, you know? Mm-hmm. Do you remember, because you play guitar, what age do you start playing?
I started really taking it seriously at 12. I mean, I got a guitar when I was 6, but I didn't really do much with it. I just kind of made noise on it. But when I was 12, I heard Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and all that kind of stuff. And you see, the thing is, at my house, I didn't hear the radio or anything like that until I was about 12. I only ever heard the music my dad was either writing, working on, or listening to recreationally. So that could have been any kind of music, from Johnny Guitar Watson to the Bulgarian Women's Choir or whatever.
Right.
So I was exposed to all kinds of music, but by the time I heard basic pop music, my thought process upon hearing all of it was like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
Because there, I was only used to all the textures and things that were in my dad's music, which had every kind of instrument from marimbas and flutes and all this kind of stuff. And then when I heard other music, I just thought it was missing so many things. But I did hear things in Randy Rhoads playing and in Eddie Van Halen's playing that in some way kind of related to what the complexities that were happening in my dad's music. And what they did on guitar was by no means easy, but it seemed a lot easier to learn that than to learn any of my dad's stuff. So I kind of dove in to the Randy Rhoads and Van Halen stuff, and I didn't really have any kind of formal training in those days. I just sat there and tried to learn the stuff by ear, and I went straight for the solos. I didn't know anything about chords or anything.
That's all you cared about.
Yeah, I was like, I got to learn Eruption, or a Mr. Crowley solo or something like that.
How long did it take you to learn that kind of shit?
Well,
because I played music and I sat down, I was just like, nah, power chords.
Yeah,
I think people just can do it or they can't.
Well, the thing about it is, it's one thing to learn it, but it's another thing to actually learn it the way the person actually played it, with all of their inflections,
the feeling,
get the sound, and all that stuff. Because there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I can play Eruption," and you hear them play it, but it sounds nothing like the way Ed played it on that record.
Yeah,
and so I spent a long time over the years just trying to really ingrain exactly how he played that, and I mean, it was not ever something that I could just do easily. I mean, it took years to really be like, because you're really studying somebody, all of the characteristics and the nuances of somebody's playing, and then you have to commit that to memory in the way that you try to perform it. And so, it took a long time to be able to be able to do that and make it sound like what it really sounds like on the record.
Yeah, I think most of the time what people miss is for sure the feeling. Like, it's that old Guitar Center thing where you just see the kid, he's in there, he looks around to see who's looking, and then he just blasts into Eruption. And also, I think they missed the attack. Because Eddie had this attack, man, that the way he would just play that shit, it felt like he was stabbing you.
The sound he had was amazing, and certainly, the way that he did attack the notes. In those days, he wasn't using a really, really heavy pick, but all the harmonics and things that he would do, that stuff was just really, really cool. And it's kind of funny because now here we are in 2015, and those kind of sounds, like some of those harmonics, are really dated, and they don't sound good when people do them. I mean, it's still cool when Ed does it because he really was one of the main guys that used that quality in his playing. But I mean, Billy Gibbons was using those kind of pinch harmonics before he was, and Angus
like
Young.
that thing, bam, bum, gum, gum, bum, gum, bang, gum, that shit. And then, I think what happened was Zakk Wylde just started doing it too much. I love Zakk, but every time just. After a while you're like, man, it's kind of like a comic that would laugh at their own jokes. It's like almost an insecurity, like, this is my thing,
Yeah, it's something that is part of his playing, and he probably doesn't even realize that he's doing it as much as he's doing it because he just likes the sound of it and he's just going for it, But at a certain point, as we all have some level of maturity. You start to look at, things could be refined or, edited so that the, only the best elements are being presented, but in, the arrogance of youth and everything, you're like, I'm going to just tear it up and put in everything, and sometimes more is not better.
Yeah, that's true. In the case of like a Michelangelo guy, Nitro guy, I mean, it's cool to see once, kind of like Evel Knievel, but after a while, you're like, all right, you got 8 necks there, but give me some Jimmy Page, know?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with guitar, it's almost the same as, like Olympic athletes. Back in the days, early 20s, 30s, 40s, as records were being broken, in like milestones. It's all as a result of training, and then who knows what else. Some people probably steroids or whatever. But the fact is, when there are great achievements, the next generation, they set the bar there, and they're going to keep raising it. And so as far as guitar playing goes, it got to a point where people have just like stupefying technique, but they're not necessarily making music with it. And that's the biggest problem. They can do amazing things, play a billion notes per second and play it clean and all that stuff, but what's the point if the music is not connecting with you? And maybe some people really like that, and there is an audience for the technician side of it, where people just love to hear that barrage of notes. But I think if you looked at what that cross section of the audience there is, there wouldn't be even one woman.
No, man. It's like NAMM show, times 1,000. You're right there, because I think a lot of the guys that can play the shit out of the guitar can't write a song, which is their demon, and also they can't sing, most of them. Which is why I like the one kid, Johnny Lang. He didn't lie to me. The thing was, he was an incredible kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan player, but he could sing where the other guys couldn't sing that were doing the Stevie Ray thing at the time, Yeah. So they always had that sing. Where the other guy that had that blue on black.
What is it, Kenny Wayne Shepherd?
Yeah, so he couldn't sing, and I think that haunts a lot of those guys.
Well, Kenny's a great player, too. I've done the Hendrix tour with both of those guys, Johnny Lang and Kenny Wayne. And they're tremendous players, but the thing is, it's you have to really love that style to want to be just only listening to that. And so I grew up hearing so many different things, and my interests are in all kinds of different areas as far as music goes, and I try to translate that to guitar. But as the years have gone by, a lot of people would have pigeonholed what I do as being, 80s rock or Van Halen inspired or whatever. But having done Zappa Plays Zappa for the last decade, my playing has totally changed in terms of what I'm, not only technically, but mentally. The approach is different, because my father, when he would improvise, his solo style really was, he was a composer. He was reacting to the music that was happening at the moment, and he was having a musical conversation with everything that was happening in the band. He's listening for all of the rhythmic cues and other things so that he can play off of that, because he had this incredible internal rhythm and he loved polyrhythms. So he was always trying to do stuff that was rhythmically very diverse, so he could play for 13 minutes and not repeat himself, because it's not a bag of guitar licks.
Right.
He's responding to what's happening right there in the moment, and that, to try to capture that kind of feel was way more challenging, because you have to really have much more of a broad vocabulary in your playing, harmonically and rhythmically. So I've had to do a lot of different things to completely. I've described it as like getting a lobotomy and then training for the Olympics, because I had to take everything that I knew for more than 30 years of guitar playing and just say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. That's weird, right? Because you got to think, I'm talking about Eruption being hard to learn, but when I listen to Zappa, I not once ever think in my mind, oh, yeah, well, I could play this. Ever. Yeah. Even when I played with Scott, he played in my band, I was like, well, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, but like, that shit is, I don't even know how you sit down to learn it. All the intricacies of it, just the insanity of it, Well, the thing is, it's hard when you want to sit down to learn some of the stuff, because not only is it hard to play, but it's hard to focus on where to get your to even just get started, because you have that like sense of procrastination that you would have for any major thing, like studying for a test or whatever. You're like, oh, I got to do this.
But so what I have to do usually is I go right to the hardest part, and I look at, okay, how am I going to make this work on the guitar? Because if I can make that part work, the other parts are, because really it comes down to you have to be able to envision it in your mind, say I can do this, and then you set about doing it. But so that being said, I learned to play things on guitar that were never written for guitar or never even played on guitar. So songs like Inca Roads or St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast have these passages that are just insane to try to learn on guitar. Rhythmically, very difficult, but intervallically, it just doesn't fall in any common guitaristic pattern. So I had to change everything about my picking technique and all of these things, and I literally like re-envisioned how I see the guitar neck for a lot of these things, and it's changed my playing because I can do so much more that I never thought I would ever do.
Right.
But the more technical ability I have these days, the more I'm actually trying to just use that less and just be more melodic with things. And because what I find ultimately is the one thing that will make people respond to things is that you have to have rhythmic variation. That's the main thing, because people can lock into a groove of some sort and they can detect these rhythmic contours and things. You can add whatever notes you want to that. If you have really cool rhythmic contours to what you're doing, the notes are just a little added benefit to it to make it that much more memorable. But for the listener, it's that rhythmic variation that is the key, especially in improvised things.
Yeah.
If you're not going to provide that kind of diversity, then you're going to lose people after a very short period. Because once you start flailing away with 52 billion notes, like as soon as they've seen that for 10 seconds, they're done.
You're right.
They don't need any more of that.
You're right. It's got to go somewhere. You when you were playing like at 12, 13 and stuff, was Frank like going, what are you learning Van Halen for? Was he knocking the music you're listening to, or was he just cool?
No, because he was a fan of music in general. I mean, he really revered music as the highest art form. And so when people were good at it, no matter what style, he was able to recognize that and say, yeah, they're really good at that thing. And
right.
So for Eddie Van Halen, I think my dad is probably the one that actually coined the phrase, that Edward Van Halen reinvented electric guitar.
Oh, he was the one that said that. Wow, that's badass.
I think that was in a very early interview when Frank was talking about Ed. But, it's a very strange thing. Van Halen was the biggest band in the world. It was 1982. I was really into Van Halen. I was listening to it all the time. And out of the blue, we got a phone call from somebody purporting to be Eddie Van Halen on the phone. And at that time, there was no MTV. There was you didn't know anything about what musicians really looked like or
That's
what
right.
they sounded like.
I always say that. It was Circus Magazine,
yeah,
and then you had to go to the show.
Yeah.
And then I don't think you can really ever have the feeling that you and I had where you're sitting in a venue like the Forum, and then the fucking lights go down, and all of a sudden he's jumping, he's playing like, the striped guitar you've seen.
Yeah.
He's wearing a parachute jumpsuit and blast into the incredible, on fire. And you're going
Romeo Delight to start the show,
That's right, yeah. And you just go your idols are right there, and they're playing like the record, but loud, and people are going crazy.
Yeah, that is something that is definitely lost on today's sort of today's youth, I would say, because they don't respond to music in the same way. I mean, it's just one of those things that's kind of on in the background, and it's for a lot of people anyway, and it's kind of the thing that is their outward appearance moniker thing, where if they have some music on in the background, that's basically indicating to the rest of the people, oh, I'm this person.
That's right.
I like this kind of thing.
Yeah, that comes a lot with Radiohead people. They're going to let you know right away. They're a Radiohead fan. You know,
my dad had a quote, and this was in the early 80s. It says, music has become wallpaper for people's lifestyle.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It kind of is more true now than ever. I mean, the sad thing is that music has been so devalued that people really just don't even think it's worth buying.
We could talk about that for hours, and it's the reason I don't play music anymore, because I've starved out. You know, it's not that I don't love it. It's just when someone comes up after the gig and you go, "Hey, you want to buy one of my CDs?" and they go, "Oh no, my friend burned it for me. I love it." They have no concept that they just told you, "I stole your record."
Yeah,
zero concept. Not like, here's 20, we enjoyed it, or anything.
Yeah.
They just want everything free. It's crazy.
Well, it's this bizarre thing where people would spend $4 on a stupid fart sound app on their phone.
You're so right.
But they won't buy a song.
That's fucking, that makes my skin crawl because recently I saw this band, St. Paul and the Broken Bones, and there's 7 guys in the band, and when I find a band I love, I just talk about them on this show nonstop. The last band I loved was Rival Sons, because they didn't feel just like some band throwing bell bottoms on doing the old rock sound. I could tell I interviewed them, and I was like, these guys know their shit all the way back to the, Free or Frankie Miller or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think about these guys and how good this singer is in St. Paul and the Broken Bones. I mean, he's just straight Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding. And 7 guys in the band. I'm like, these guys, zero money in their pocket. I know it right now. Sold out at the El Rey, but zero money in their pocket. So I love that guys still do it. But yeah, you're right there. A $4 fart app, it just makes my skin crawl.
Well, there's been so many arguments by so many people of the younger generation of just they don't understand that you have rights as an artist, as the person who writes this stuff. You shouldn't just have it pirated, or so people complain if somebody says, "Hey, no, you should pay for this." They get pissed off at the person. If you give it a real world example, there's a nice garbage truck right outside.
Yeah, that's picking up the music stealers.
Yeah,
I kill him and throw him in the can, and then he picks them up.
Yeah, that's good.
There it is. See you, music stealers.
The the point that I was trying to make was that when you have let's give a real world example. Let's say somebody likes oranges.
Yeah.
And they walk into a grocery store. They don't just get to they don't just get to fill up their cart with oranges and walk out with the oranges because they like oranges. So you have this mentality of people like, "Oh, I love this band, I'm going to go get all their stuff." They don't buy it. They just download it. They get the torrent streams, all this stuff. But it's their favorite band. They listen to it all the time. They're not supporting that at all. And then they get mad if that band says, "Hey, you shouldn't be putting the stuff out for free." Or so it's this weird entitlement of like, I love this. I should have this.
Yeah.
But in the real world, if you love something, you get arrested if you steal it.
Well, yeah, if you went on a guy's farm on the 99 and just started taking oranges, you're getting shot by a shotgun. You know what I mean? You'll just go out there. And farming is one of the hardest things in the world right now because there's zero money in it, just like music. Like, the water problems, and then, of course, it's just everything's getting worse and worse with farmers. I can't believe people even grow food anymore, and I feel the same as musicians because the amount of time I spent writing these records and the stress and the gruel and then going and recording 24 track, which is $2,000 a day in the Valley, and then paying the musicians and then putting the artwork together and mastering and pressing, and then boom, it's in someone's thing free. It's not a greed thing with the musicians. We're minus now. Yeah. So you're saying we don't want you to do this anymore is what you're saying. They basically
they love to have the luxury of having it there, but they think that the image of musicians is that they're just raking it in.
They all
the time.
think that. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like right now, my comedy career is exploding, but you can see where I live, and I wonder where I'm going to get rent. It's a great place, but it's just a guest house in the hills. It's like, but I'm like on paper, it looks like I'm probably making thousands. I'm on 7 nights a week. I'm in the biggest clubs. I'm on TV, radio,
Yeah.
No, man, it's just artists. They don't make money unless they're U2, Springsteen, Stones. There's 10 bands, Metallica, know?
But the craziest part about it is they don't make the money on music. They make money on T-shirts.
That's it, man. And now the way the record deals work is the record companies don't make any money, so they sign an all-in deal where they take half your publishing, half your T-shirts, and half your touring.
And they own your name, basically.
It's stupid, crazy. I can't believe it.
I don't know why anybody would sign a deal like that.
I don't. I interrupted you, though, so Eddie Van Halen calls the house. Who answers the phone?
So my mom answers the phone, and it's a guy saying he's Eddie Van Halen, and she doesn't know what he sounds like. I don't know what he sounds like, but she says, hey, get on the other line. This guy says he's Eddie Van Halen. What are you talking about? And so the only frame of reference I have of just a voice, because like we were talking about, there were no interviews. You didn't see musicians being interviewed on TV. It was very rare. Back in the day, you might see like a 2-minute piece on, some
Channel 9, or PBS,
or even like Two on the Town. Remember that show?
Oh yeah, yeah.
CBS. Anyway, so the only reference I have is the part from Unchained. Come on, Dave, give me a break.
Yeah.
But that I'm assuming is Ted Templeman.
That's what I thought it was, Ted. Yeah.
But I have no idea. So I'm just listening for that tonality.
Yeah, like hello.
Yeah, but I'm 12. I'm like, yeah, it's got to be him. It's got to be Ed. So my dad picks up the phone. They talk for a little bit, and then 20 minutes later, Eddie Van Halen's at the house.
Wow.
But it was like when he was walking up the steps, he might as well have been backlit with a smoke machine and a superhero cape. It was like,
what car does he come in?
Yeah, I think he drove a Lamborghini truck, one of those.
Like
you could hear that thing that coming down the street for blocks.
And what are we talking? 82 Diver Down, Dave, or
it was.
Eddie.
Yeah, it was Diver Down.
God,
but he showed up in the women and children jumpsuit.
What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? He's wearing that at the house?
Yeah.
So he comes in. You got to be losing your mind.
First thing that happens after saying hello is I put a guitar in his hand. I say, "Play Mean Streets."
No fucking way. And he does it.
Yeah,
you just turn him into a jukebox.
Yeah, and so I just got to watch it up close, and I'm like, that's how he does it.
Was it plugged in or just the guitar?
Yeah, it got plugged in and everything. So it was. It was the craziest, greatest thing, because at that time I was really into playing Little League baseball, and I was on a team, and we were like on our way to the Little League World Series and all this kind of shit.
What position you play?
I mostly played pitcher, but I also played second base and first base, and sometimes the outfield. But I actually pitched a no-hitter, which was hilarious.
Wow, that's crazy. What's funny is I love Little League. To me, it was exact. There's things in my life, Little League, rock, and comedy. They're all kind of this platform. Little League, when your team's good, I had a great team also. And you just feel kind of like a star, right?
But remember, back then, you had the Bad News Bears.
That's right.
Who didn't have a crush on Tatum O'Neal in that?
And Kelly Leak was a god to me.
Yeah, but so the thing was, like, you can't remake that movie now because they tried to do it, but the kids in that movie are total racist. Like Tanner. Yeah. The stuff that he says you'd get arrested as a parent for if you were in public with a child that is talking that way to people.
Yeah.
But that was just the norm.
The shocker value of it is incredible.
but it's real. I mean, that was like, I mean, that's real life.
That really is real life. It's amazing because there's these guys that really stuck out to me, and one was Kelly Leak, that guy, who I don't know if you know what happened to him, but of course he did Breaking Away. Yeah. He did some great films, and then he says he goes through a weird 17-year-old ugly period, and no one casts him. He moves to Texas and drives limos all his life. And then about 8 years ago, he is driving a guy, and the guy goes, "Hey, I recognize you. Weren't you in the Bad News Bears?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. Like, how do you recognize me?" He's like, "I got a film, man. I think you'd be good in it." He goes, "I haven't acted in years." And that was Little Children, which he gets an Academy Award nominee for and jumpstarts his career again.
I had no idea because I have been out of watching the films, but that's a great story.
It's a fucking great story. Can you imagine your first film back in 30 years? You get an Academy Award nominee.
Yeah.
And then he does Freddy Krueger and all kinds of shit. The guy's great. But that guy, to me, was an early outlaw. He rode a Harley dirt bike. He smoked cigarettes. They played air hockey in that fucking arcade, and it was our life, man, right?
It was badass, you know? I mean, so as a kid, all I was doing then was, before I started playing guitar, was I was practicing baseball, and I was really into it. But then, you know, I had a baseball game the next day, the day that Eddie Van Halen came over, and he stayed till like 3 or 4 in the morning. Steve Vai was in Frank's band, so he came over and was late at night. And so Frank, Steve Vai, Eddie Van Halen, and me, and we're sitting in the studio, and there's this guitar that's being passed around, and everybody's playing little things. And,
wow.
And it was, so from then on, I was like, I don't care about baseball anymore.
The game was terrible the next day, right?
I was fine. I was like, I'll play this game, but then I'm into the guitar forever now.
Wow. That had to be weird. Did your dad go to the games? Because
he came to some of the games. He wasn't around all the time because he did a lot of touring and stuff. But yeah, he was there. So
now you grew up in Laurel Canyon. Answer me this, because there's always the Laurel Canyon myth there. So you've got the Houdini mansion, which later I find out he didn't even ever live in, across the street. Yeah. Then you have, is your house the one that burned down on the corner?
I never lived in that house. Frank lived in it for a brief period, and that was the one that was called the Log Cabin. So it was originally, like, in Laurel Canyon back in the 30s. I mean, it was like a western town, you know, because there's that big hill.
That's right.
So there were these kind of hunting lodges and different things way back.
Yeah, they got him here. I live in Beechwood, and Brad Pitt bought this hunting lodge over here, which is a huge Craftsman that slept like 30 guys that would take the weekend trip from Beverly Hills to go hunting up here. Hilarious, right? And they just come out, shoot fucking foxes and shit, and then go home to Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
So that was Laurel Canyon was like that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure they weren't just shooting migrant workers.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that whole time frame, and being a kid and growing up with all those things is so different now. You know, when we had that baseball thing where I was all into baseball, then I got into only guitar, and that was the kind of thing when you're a kid that those things make such a huge impact on you, and now as I try to relate it to things that I see around, modern experiences. Like, for example, I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, two girls, and they're kind of into music. They're kind of starting to listen to things that they hear on the radio, and the funniest thing to me is that when they hear stuff that I do, you know, for them it's the equivalent of what we would have said back in the day of things. It's like the olden times.
Yeah,
that's from the olden times.
The olden times.
Yeah, and so, but it's the thing is I'm making this new record, and I said I'm going to have them come in and sing some background vocals, and I never have worked with them on anything musically. I mean, I give them guitars to play around with, and they make some noise on it, but they don't really get that into it. But for me, if my dad would have said, "Hey, do you want to come in and do some background vocals?" I would, yes, this would be so exciting.
Right.
You're like, do we have to?
Oh,
And so they come into the studio, and ultimately they ended up having fun doing it. But I made them sing 3-part harmony on this song called "On Fire," and they had never done anything like that before. So my oldest daughter, I was really surprised that I could give her the pitch for the first note, and she would really retain it, and you know, I wouldn't have to keep giving it to her, because you know, once you hear some other music, your ear changes to whatever you're hearing.
That's right.
And so if you've never done anything like this, it's a real challenge. You can't over-explain it to an 8-year-old or
pitch training's crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
but she would retain it, and I'd just point to her when she had to sing. She'd sing the part, and then she'd do the next note and the next note, and she retained it, and she did a great job. She sang all of them in tune, and so she liked hearing it at the end. And then my 6-year-old, same thing, but she was sitting on my wife's lap and like clawing her because she was so nervous. You know? But she did the whole thing. But when you hear them sing, it's so hilarious because it sounds like helium voices because they're so little.
Oh yeah, right.
And so, but they're singing these parts. It sounds great, but it sticks out in the mix. It's really funny because you got big guitars and all this stuff, and then these little teeny tiny voices.
That's cool. Yeah. Did you play on any of your dad's records?
I did. I got to play on a record called "Them or Us," where I did a studio session on a song called "Charlena." And but I played on stage with him a few times.
Wow, what year was that?
The very first time I played with him was in 1982. I'd only been playing guitar for 9 months. Whoa. And I played at the Hammersmith Odeon in London.
Wow.
And so that was,
which they just tore down, I think.
I guess so. It was probably bought up by some other corporation and turned into something else.
Yeah, a mall.
Yeah, it was probably just like a beer venue or something. But
how many songs did you play?
I just played on one, but the great thing about it was the song was called Stevie's Spanking, and it's the song that that Frank wrote about Steve Vai. And so the song's in the key of B, and I could only play in the key of A because that's all I ever practiced. So my dad gave the band a hand signal to modulate down from B to A for my solo. And so I play an A, and then when I'm done with the solo, he just gives them the hand signal, and they go back up to B, and I walk off the stage. You know?
You just did the Whiplash. Did you see Whiplash?
No.
Oh, my God. It's funny because as I watched Whiplash, I thought of Scott Tunis because he's so, rigid, like we talk about. Like, he's like, no, you're playing it wrong. It's in C.
Yeah.
But he's the nicest guy. But the way he comes out, you're like, oh.
Well, he was the guy that ran the rehearsals when Frank wasn't at rehearsal yet. He was what was called the Clone Meister, and he was the guy that had to make sure everybody was learning the parts correctly. So people were practicing their things, and he was sitting there basically with his face down in a crossword puzzle, and whenever he heard something wrong, he would say, wrong, play it right, asshole.
That's so him, right? Yeah. I bet it's crazy. It's so funny to think that guy, like how great he is, but how he, you just go, well, that's Scott.
Yeah,
there's people in the world like that, right? Where you go, well, that's just him, and if you want Scott, that's what you get.
Well, there's lots of ways to describe it. Abrasive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's obviously very, very talented, and a lot of the people that have these kind of skills come from, a background, or I guess some people have this mentality that nobody gets a free ride, nobody gets this easy. You got to be hard on people to make them do the right thing.
That's what Whiplash is all about. So you should see it.
Yeah, so
because it's a jazz drum instructor.
Yeah. So I don't agree with that principle in terms of teaching, because I do a lot of teaching, and I think there's other ways to get people to the next level through encouragement rather than like beating them down.
Right. I think there's just different ways, you know what I mean? Like, I know that from guys telling me from doing comedy, like, man, that's garbage. that made me drive harder. Like, what? You know what I mean? And it's brutal, but it's also a way to get me off a bad habit immediately. If one of your idols tells you that, or a hero that you like, you know? But it's a weird, music's a weird thing because it starts out, not with you because you played with family and stuff, but it starts out with strangers. And then you start this band, and then you get a little chemistry, and then you start to see the real people, you know, in the band, maybe on the road, in the studio, or whatever. And you're like, whoa, this guy's way different, you know?
Well, that's the biggest part. The hardest part about being a band leader and keeping a band together is finding personalities that can work well together over extended periods of time in confined spaces, you know, because you're on a bus. You're traveling, and some people just can't handle that stuff, and they just behave really poorly out on the road. And, you know, I have no tolerance for anything where there's drama or people, you know, no drugs, alcohol, nothing like that. So, you know, some people over a period of time look for anything to complain about, and, you know, it's just weird when that kind of stuff happens because, you know, I try to make sure that they can recognize the situation for what it really is. How difficult is it to be a musician and actually earn a living?
Yeah.
If you have a gig and you're actually, you know, employed for lengthy periods of time playing music that's actually fun and you know, and rewarding to play, you know, where's the complaining part? You know?
Yeah, it's really weird to me. I don't get it because a lot of the times it would come down to, with me, it would be the drummer. Like, they always eventually have this thing of where they don't write songs and stuff, and they become angry because they hear music in their head, but they don't know how to play guitar or something. So that comes, you know what I mean? And there's also that 100 years of drummers not getting paid, you know, songwriting money, which
but you know, it doesn't just because they're playing drums on it doesn't mean they wrote it.
That's correct.
So
that's correct. I understand that. What I'm saying is you get a that kind of flavor comes out.
Totally, it happens.
Some guys are driving Ferraris in a band, and other guys are driving a VW.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, if you're a hired gun, the person that is taking the financial risk, who's doing all the touring stuff and paying your salary, they're the ones that they're the ones that have they're writing the stuff. It's their name on the ticket, whatever.
Yep.
They're the ones that take the financial risk. The band gets paid no matter what.
You're so right.
You know?
They just, you know, they get their money every Friday, and the lead guy sometimes doesn't get any money when he comes home.
Yeah, that totally can happen.
Yeah.
So the thing that's crazy though is ultimately, if music's in your blood and that's the thing that you need to do and you want to do and you want to make a living at it, getting a gig and keeping a gig, you know, sometimes that's very hard for people because sometimes they don't have great people skills. And
you're right.
So, you know, you might be great and can play the parts, but you might be terrible to hang out with.
Well, a lot of amazing musicians have terrible people skills because that's why there's frontmen.
Yeah.
The front man actually, sure, he can sing, but he probably has amazing people skills early on in the band that gets people to the gigs, flyering. He's out every night, where the other guys are all just lunatics. One guy's in his room. Yeah. Then you got the bass player who just probably smokes weed all day, and then you got the drummer who just has the annoying girlfriend that he's in love with. That's the breakdown of rock and roll, right?
You can definitely have that scenario and many others, but I mean, it's ultimately, you know, if you have a chance to do something that you enjoy, then it's really not work.
That's what I say. Like, I don't make a nickel doing comedy, but I could give a shit, man. It's like so awesome doing it that I'm like, yeah, I don't care what happens. Because I could be working construction in the valley right now, just fucking eating it in the heat. I don't have any other skills. I played music 25 years. What am I going to do? You know? So now I do comedy, and I thank God. Oh, yeah, man, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
You know? You have the Eddie Van Halen Rasta guitar, right?
I do. I have that.
How the fuck do you get this guitar?
I went to his studio, and it was sitting in pieces in the corner. And I said, "Oh my God, that's the guitar from Life magazine, the only guitar that has any green on it." Because all of his guitars that were ever seen in pictures, that he had nothing that had green,
right?
And so I immediately saw that one, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I hate that guitar. You want it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But the thing about that guitar is, it had literally in the neck joint there was what appeared to be vomit, like from a couple years prior, but it's still
like he ran over and just threw up in it one day,
or somebody did. But anyway, that guitar is the guitar that's in the video that you see from Oakland.
Yeah, I went to that shows.
Okay, so the
I got an Oakland scarf, the Mean Streets, This Is Love.
The one that he's playing on there, that it's got the black and white bubble and all that stuff, and on the back it said "See Ya."
Yeah,
bye.
they just released that.
It's that original guitar, but painted over.
Oh, wow.
You can see through the paint that "See Ya Bye" on the back and some of the
dots.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
So it's
man.
that guitar, but then repainted.
I'm obsessed with the Eddie guitars. It's just at the NAMM show. Did you look at the 5 they have?
I didn't get a chance to see him.
That was the reason I went, because they this year released the Star one with the squiggly lines that he played on the Fair Warning tour, also with the Dan Electro headstock. So they have the Circle Fair Warning one.
Yeah.
They have Van Halen 1, 2, and then Frankenstein, and now the Star one. And part of the biggest thrill to me of Eddie Van Halen was every year a different guitar. The little guitars, the Les Pauls. I love the Destroyer, the Ibanez that he cut. I love the Python one. I love that weird Charvel. That's the weird fucking shape. I forget what they call that one. But to have that guitar, what do you do with it? Is it in your house mounted? Or
No, I play it. And there's a video you can see of me and Jack Black doing Crazy Train when there was a TV show called On the Spot that was on the WB, and I was the band leader for that thing.
I saw that in the IMDb.
In between the commercials, we would play songs for the audience, and so Jack Black was on the show as a guest, and he sang Ozzy's Crazy Train with us, but I played that guitar.
Wow.
On that.
So it was all apart, and you just grab the parts and go home and put it together?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then you put it together right away, right? Plug it in?
Hell yeah, of course.
Now, what about the Hendrix guitar?
That the same.
Now is that from Berkeley?
No, that guitar was, as far as research shows, it was burned at the London Astoria, and then it was brought over with his gear when they did a show. Frank and Jimmy played on the same day at the Miami Pop Festival.
Right.
And so the burned, destroyed guitar was given to Frank there. It wasn't destroyed during a performance at that festival. And so it was on the wall at the house for years, and then Frank decided to have it put back together. And then in 1977, he was on the cover of Guitar Player magazine with that guitar. And he played it on tour through probably 1984, but the guitar disappeared at some point, and I found it under a staircase at the house. It was in pieces, and the pickguard and the neck were off, and so really it was just the body that remained, that had to be rebuilt into another guitar. So I found it. I told Frank I found it, and I put it back together. But I found it. I mean, it went missing probably 84, but I found it around 89 or 90, something like that.
Wow.
So I put it back together, but Fender built a special neck that had a flipped headstock, which was sort of a nod to Jimmy, and then there was a different pickguard that had some different pickups in it. But recently I actually restored it to the way it looked on the cover from 1977. So it has this metal pickguard and these burnt pickup covers and all these extra switches and knobs from the electronics that Frank had in it, and then this weird neck that has some strange, looked like a piece of like a pickguard that was cut into the shape of a shark fin.
Right.
That's put on the neck right by the string tree. So, but it looks great. I played it on my new record.
Wow, man, that's fucking crazy to have those two guitars, right? Now, let's talk a little bit. When I was growing up, you had a TV show, Normal Life, right?
Yeah, that was one of those weird experiences where...
you and your sister?
Yeah, Moon and I, we had done some stuff on MTV, and then somehow there came this idea. The Brillstein company approached us about doing something, and it ended up on CBS. But the thing was, we had pitched the show as kind of, we jokingly called it Addams Family Ties, because it was like a family show, but it was the odd family. So everything we did in the house was, it would be considered really odd to others, but normal to us, which is kind of how we grew up. So it was this, that's great, let's do this. But then when it got to the point where it went into production, they said, what if we make you really normal and have really wacky neighbors? And then it was like, oh, no.
That's not the show at all.
Yeah, so we ended up doing exactly the opposite of the show. And it was, it might as well have been Charles in Charge,
Yeah, that's just weird, right? I mean, that would have been such an interesting show. Like, was it... it's funny because Jacob Dylan's one of my best friends, and it's your dad and Bob Dylan are massive icons. It's got to be weird to grow up in that kind of atmosphere, right? I mean, we're not talking about small stars. You know?
But the thing is, my dad was not at all the kind of celebrity that went for anything having to do with celebrity status.
Same with Dylan. I'm just saying they're more of the. I'm saying they're huge icons.
But you, as a kid, the kids your age don't know anything about. So I grew up pretty unassuming. Nobody knew my dad or really anything. Their parents might have known something about him, but it was never. There wasn't this whole paparazzi anything. It didn't have anything to do with it. So we really lived a pretty normal existence. Abnormal in the sense that both parents were home. Like when my dad was not touring, he was home. He didn't have a driver's license. He was just home working in the studio. So both parents worked from home.
Yeah.
And so
what'd your mom do? She ran the record label?
Company.
Right, yeah.
So, we had...
and 4 kids.
Yeah.
Is Moon the oldest?
Moon's the oldest.
And then you?
Then Amit, then Diva.
Right. I don't know Diva, but I do remember Amit as just being a lunatic.
Yeah, he was wacky on stage for sure.
What is the relationship now with all you guys? Are you guys your family, of course?
Yeah, we all do so many different things, so we really don't get together as a family all that much because everybody's got busy schedules, and between work and kids and all that stuff. I don't really do very much. I have very little free time.
Yeah, I bet, right? And then touring and stuff. Yeah. So you're working on a new record right now, and what is it? Is it a Dweezil record, or is it?
Yeah, it's the first time in a decade that I've had a chance to actually write my own music and sort of see what 10 years of playing my dad's music has done to my own musical
influence.
And I don't think people are going to be expecting what this record is. It's very difficult to describe. I think one of the guys that's working on the record with me, a longtime friend of mine, Craig Parker Adams, he's been helping me by doing all the recording in the studio he has, and he described it as kind of like Frank's music is in its own category, where you really can only just say it's Zappa music.
That's right. It's got to be weird because there's nothing that sounds like it.
Right. And so he says this is the same thing. This record represents the same concept of it's Zappa music, but it's a different Zappa.
Yeah.
So because every single song is cut from a different cloth. I mean, there's sonically, it's a scene change for every song, but not one song is similar to the next. There's all kinds of different things on the record.
Is there singing?
Yeah, it's mostly singing.
Oh, who's singing? You?
I am singing lead, but we have the band Sheila Gonzalez and Ben Thomas and Chris Norton singing a lot of background vocals. But last night I recorded some background vocals with these girls that are incredible called the Songbirds. Separately, they all have their own project, but when they do their thing as the Songbirds, I mean, it's ridiculous what they can do. They just have a natural ability to lock in and sing together like you can't believe. When you're standing next to them singing,
Yeah.
it's insane. It's
Like 4-part harmonies or something?
yeah,
Just
3-part.
like sound just like flutes or something. You ever heard that where 3 people sing and it sounds like an instrument?
They have that and beyond, because they have the total breath control and vibrato that they can match, so that they can do these things. And they can do all these swells. I mean, they'll just watch each other's hand gestures, and they'll just direct all of the stuff, so it's things that will just open up to other sounds. It's incredible. But so they did some great stuff on the record, but there's a guy named Sean Albro that sings one song. I was able to put on this record. My dad and I co-wrote one song, the only song that I ever got a chance to do with him.
Wow.
There's a song called Dragon Master, and it's the only mega metal tune on the record. It is a total epic tour de force metal madness thing. And so Sean Albro does all the vocals on this song, and it's just hilarious because we made sure that there's like a metal-ism from all of the top guys. There's Ozzy-isms, there's Bruce Dickinson-isms, Rob Halford-isms, Ronnie James Dio-isms.
I love that shit, right?
So they're all it's like weird little things where it's like hate the day, hate the light. The extra syllables that that are, and it's just funny stuff.
All that stuff's great, right? Because then it's always followed by like a
all that stuff is in there, but then you have some more twisted harmonies that I've made him sing. So it's kind of like you got a bit of Queen in there mixed with like a sort of Zappa twist.
It's like the medley, but your own song.
Yeah, but all in one thing, and then but it's just an epic journey. This particular song, Dragon Master. So I think people are gonna definitely. The thing about it is, the unsuspecting metalhead that doesn't know that there's a musical joke within this whole thing is going to shed a tear of joy because it's going to bring back the metal of it's a new dawn of metal here.
Yeah, right.
It's when you heard Iron Maiden in 1982 and you're 12 years old and you're thinking, oh wow, this
insane, right? Number of the Beast.
Yeah, Run to the Hills and all this stuff. It's like it's capturing the quality and feel of that plus early Sabbath and all this thing, but it's an awesome tour de force. People, I think, are going to be amused by it.
I love that stuff, man. It's like I think that it's looked at as part of cheesy, but I played at the Randy Rhoads tribute this year at NAMM and the Zeppelin thing, and as I'm on stage with these players like Rudy Sarzo, you know, I mean, this guy played with Randy, and we're playing full blast. There's nothing like that feeling, man, up there. It's just that stuff. Like I don't know, it's so radical,
Those songs are undeniable. They will always stand the test of time because nobody did anything like that at that time. And I mean, when Randy played that stuff and he's 22 years old and he was just so ahead of his time in terms of how he did all the rhythm parts intersect with the lead things, and just there's compositional skills there in terms of arrangement and counterpoint and things that just were not being done by guitarists.
Yeah.
He just broke such new ground there. I mean, it's kind of like, for really any progress to take place, you have to just destroy the old paradigm and create a new one, and he did that, and that kind of stuff is what makes his music
timeless.
Yeah, I mean, some people still might listen to it and think of it as being dated, but imagine, you remember pop radio in the 80s, early 80s, what you would hear, Crazy Train, Flying High Again, that was pop music.
That's crazy, right?
Music.
Yeah. It's weird, too, that, from that, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that, Eddie was like, oh, fuck this guy. So he writes the Fair Warning record, which is so violent and radical. So we get Fair Warning from that as his response. Then we get Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules from the Sabbath with Dio. Yeah. And then we get The Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. So we get this fucking massive amount of awesome music that I still listen to today,
Yeah, it's great. There's great stuff in there. There's no question. But it's a shame that for whatever reason it's relegated to this kind of that was then kind of situation.
Yeah.
Where everybody is going to view it as nostalgia for some reason, but it still stands on its own. There's nothing like that. Nobody writes riffs anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw young people at this show. It was funny because when I saw you on the ship you did the cruise, the Jam cruise. We're out there. Speaking of young kids, there are young kids that like music, but there was that family there that loved Zappa, and they took the cruise just to come see you. And one girl was 8, the next girl was 12, then there was 13 and 16. They got a band now called Stonefield from Australia. But the dad had taught them, and they all love Zappa. They knew everything about it. And I think when dads have passion, like some of the people that love Randy Rhoads, you see these kids there. There's kids that can play it, and they're into it, and it's oh, God, thank God.
But, I mean, the thing is they got into it through a video game probably.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's kids out there that learn to play songs from the stuff that's pirated out there. Imagine what it would have been like if we could have heard the raw tracks from Fair Warning back then.
Isn't that weird?
Now you can go on, and see that stuff. I mean, it's totally illegal and totally fucked up that you can find that stuff on there.
Yeah.
Yet, obviously, undeniably awesome to be able to hear it. But it's lame that the master recordings get out there.
Yeah, that's lame. Let's talk about that real quick before I know you got to go. But I recently was interviewed at NAMM's show for a bootleg movie. It's a whole documentary on bootlegs, and that whole wall is bootlegs right there. It's mostly Zeppelin and Stones and Van Halen and AC/DC, but it's all live shows. If they put them out, I would buy them. I'm not a guy that just goes. I don't go to LimeWire or whatever. I don't even know what the sites are. I've never downloaded a tune ever, so I don't even know how to do it. But if they put live shit out, I would buy it in a minute. I love watching the live shows on YouTube and stuff, but when it comes down to, like you said, and that's why I still agree that Lars was right way back in the day.
Yeah.
He never said, don't steal our music. What he was saying was, we're in the studio making a record, and it's already out there. You know what I mean? That's wrong. And I agree with that. Any studio records and all that shit, the stuff is on. You can listen to any record on YouTube right now. That's pretty strange to me. I can just put up Fair Warning right there and then just throw it through the speakers.
Yeah. It doesn't sound great, but it's there.
It's there, yeah. Do you think, are you into bootleg? Do you buy live bootleg recordings?
Back in the day, when you couldn't go see bands, and like Van Halen, you wanted to hear what do those songs sound like live?
Totally.
I would totally buy bootlegs of that stuff. But again, if they put it out themselves, I would have bought it, from them.
In 1 minute, that's what I said.
But I know that there's tons and tons of bootlegs of everything of my dad's. There's tons of bootlegs of everything we do. I mean, the moment you go on stage, it's up there in real time.
Yep.
People putting it up, like posting it from the moment you hit the stage.
It's crazy, right?
It's really bizarre. And it's usually bad sound quality and all these kind of things. But
it is for nerds, I think, like the bad live shows. It's like a lot of my Zeppelin bootlegs, the guys under the stage recording them or whatever. Yeah. I'm just listening to how they changed every night. I'm listening to the improvising and the difference of it, which is cool. But, yeah, it blows my mind. It just goes back to what we're talking about, how they'd buy a fart app for $4, but they won't buy a song for $1.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been so devalued in everybody's mind that they think, oh, yeah, all these musicians are flying on private jets and whatever. You know, there's some people that made a killing back in the day when they would still be able to get their publishing money. Now, no, you don't sell any records, you don't get any publishing money. You know, what constitutes as a platinum album now is totally different than it was.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's a handful of artists that actually sell in the millions of records, but there's other big name acts that don't really sell records. They do pretty well on tour.
Yeah, Grateful Dead.
Well, look at Joe Bonamassa. He's not selling a ton of records, but he does great on tour.
Yeah, he does great on tour, man. I think it's just at the end of the day, you just hope you have a someone to come see you do your art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you do it because you love it, and my dad, his whole thing was, I'm going to do this regardless. It's a bonus if people like it.
Yeah.
So
that was definitely with him. It's just kind of like you're not writing hits. It was amazing. I was with Maryland Rice Cub, and we were going down Sunset about a month ago, and for some fucking reason, Valley Girl hits my head. We're just going down Sunset. Just drops in. I start singing it. She starts singing it. We start laughing how iconic this tune was. It's right up there. It's the music version of Fast Times to me. In a lingo.
Yeah.
Fast Times, you got Spicoli, great. Totally, dude, Yeah. But then you got your sister just grody, gag me with a spoon and all that. It's such an epic record to me.
But the thing that's totally preposterous is at the time you could hear that and you would think, oh my God, anybody that talks like that is an idiot. Now everybody talks like that for real.
Isn't it real?
Yeah, but it's not even just in America. You have people that come from other countries, and when they learn English, they learn to speak and I'm like, oh my God, and all that stuff is so pathetic.
How about when people say right the whole time you're talking, right? You're like, yeah, man, the food was so good, right? You're like a fucking parrot. Shut the fuck up. I'm talking here, man.
That kind of stuff.
That record is so fucking great, though.
It is an amazing record.
What happens? Your sister just starts talking like that. Your dad says, come down, let's throw this on.
She was around the house talking about these stupid girls that talk that way, and my dad thought it was funny and obviously socially retarded, so he asked her to do some stuff on the record. He just made a song around all of her improvisation stuff.
It's so great. Did they ever play it live?
They never did.
Wow. Now, also another song I loved was Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mother. Is it Mother or Baby?
My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama.
Yeah, I love that song. I just got it on vinyl. I hit you with a photo. You've done some great stuff, man.
But that's one of Frank's songs from the Dweezil's Rip My Flesh album.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I never even knew that. I've been trying to find a Frank song for 20 years, and people always come in. I'm in a Doc Martens store on Haight Street one day, buying Doc Martens once a year. Comes on, it's just jam going on, long, and a guy telling a story about a guy with a briefcase running down Hollywood Boulevard. What is this song?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like I don't know. There's things that doesn't sound specifically familiar, like right on accurate to any lyrics, but there's
right. I'm probably totally wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because for a while I thought maybe it was Funkadelic, or something. I just don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, my dad made over 80 albums, so it's hard to.
80 albums. They sell right now, right?
Yeah, but here's the one thing that he did that really changed the music industry, and people don't know about, is he had this record deal with Warner Brothers Records, and he wanted to get out of it, and it was a 5-record deal. And at this point in the history of recording contracts, there were no clauses to prevent this situation from happening. But my dad made 5 albums and delivered them all at once and completed his deal.
What?
But yeah, so nobody who signs a record deal now can do that, because you have periods of where you have that you're able to write and record and release things.
Yeah.
But he completed his deal.
And were they just trumped? Like,
they were all great albums. I mean, it was that was the period of Sleep Dirt and Orchestral Favorites and a few other records that came out right at that time. But yeah, it was like, well, what are we going to do? You know, no one's ever done this before.
That's hilarious. That's a great story, man. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember one time I asked you if you did any drugs, and you said nah. And then you said when we were young, your dad said, you guys can do drugs if you want. They're dumb, but I'm not going to tell you not to do them. Or something in that format. But
it was not quite that. I've still to this day never taken a drug. I don't care for any of that kind of stuff. I've never been drunk. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never done any of that stuff. But early on, I would see people at my dad's concerts acting like idiots, and they were a little bit scary, too. I mean, you're 10, 12 years old, and you see people
down acid.
Yeah, and you're just like, what's wrong with those people? So I said, I asked my dad, I said, what is wrong with those people? And he said, oh, those people, they've either done a bunch of drugs or taken or drank too much alcohol, and they think it gives them an excuse to be an asshole.
Wow.
You know,
and so no one in your family did drugs?
No. You know, that's like...
that's wild, right?
Yeah, none of it. So people always thought, oh, great, Frank Zappa, the wild, crazy guy, and he's got the kids with the weird names. Good luck to them,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, right. And then you guys are all great kids.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're the not one of us has ever been to rehab or anything. So it's
on paper it should be that, right? Just rich kids that fucking are just crashing cars and fucking up, Yeah. That's what I love about you guys. It's just like you're doing art. You guys, none of you spun out, And did your dad smoke weed or anything, or did that shit was just
any of that stuff?
Wow.
And you can see him in the movie Baby Snakes. There's people offering him drugs from the audience. He's like, no, you guys, that's bad for you. You shouldn't be doing that. So yeah. I mean, he just. That's the thing that really made an impression on me, was that the stuff he did was all from his imagination.
That's wild.
So if you look at the history of rock music, 90%, maybe less than 90%, but I'm going to say a good 85 to 90% of the classic music that everybody grew up listening to was somehow drug inspired, or people thinking they had to be on something to really be creative.
I believe that, though. For me, and you say like 95%. I think like 95% is, I think 99, and then your dad. You know what I mean? Because I don't know one song that doesn't probably have drugs in the studio in it, But then there's a guy who's creative like your father who could focus and do something,
Well, you can't do what he did without being completely 100% in control of all your faculties,
Yeah.
And he was a complete auteur. He knew how to do every element of what he was doing for his art. He could write every single thing on the paper, perfect manuscript. He knew how to record everything. He knew every aspect of the science of sound, all the stuff. Nothing was... He hired the best people to do what he wanted, and that's the craziest part, is that even when it was impossible to do so, he still maintained this ethic of trying to make sure it was captured the best way possible, best equipment, because in doing so, you have this this catalog that can live in in eternity, where it just everything sounds amazing. You take the tapes out of the vault and you put them up. You listen to the stuff; it's pristine. This stuff is
wow,
it's incredible sounding.
You guys have all the 2 inches still?
Yeah, that's another thing that's unique about Frank is that he was able to have all of his masters. He owned all of his.
That's incredible.
Masters. Nobody,
Any outtakes? Like
everything,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys put out outtake records and stuff?
That happens. It's a daunting task just to keep the whole archive continually updated, because there is no such thing as a fail-safe archival format. So,
right.
It's the equivalent of if you have 10,000 tapes in the vault,
wow,
you have to go through them every couple of years
and bake them.
Well, some of them you have to bake, but you have to keep printing them onto a hard drive or discs or other various things. But a hard drive might not spin in 5 years, so you're going to have to do. It's this constant thing. You have no fail-safe. So let's say you put everything that's on tape onto tape again. You need a building twice the size of the building that you have to fit all those tapes.
Fuck.
So it's this constant thing of trying to keep. And the record industry has that problem with everything that's in existence.
Yeah, you're right. You got to think about, like, there's millions of records out there. There's got to be millions of 2-inch tapes. Millions!
Right, but nobody's making good quality tape
no
anymore.
More.
And then the machines are, 40, 50 years old, so...
God, that's fun. I never even thought about where all the 2-inch tapes are in the world.
Warehouses all over the place.
Yeah, if you just take, like, recently Jimmy Page was redoing all the Zeppelin records. Imagine he's got those tapes up. There's fucking tons of them. And then he's got to archive them, like you're saying. At the same time he's remixing them and shit, he's got to fix all his masters, It's like, because when that shit's gone, it's gone.
That's right.
The 2-inch tape, then it's all just digital world.
Yeah, what people don't know about the science of it is certain tape formulations last longer than others. And so even if they're kept in the right environment, they're still more stable than having a hard drive that might not run after 4 years. A tape can last 25, 35, 45, 50 years, depending on the formulation. And when it starts going bad, you'll open up the tape and literally... there's the oxide on the tape is falling off. It's flakes of music, basically. You look in the box and it's just so the only way to get any restoration of stuff like that is you have to bake it at a very controlled low heat for several hours till it sticks enough back to the tape, and then you play it. One-time transfer, and it may not even make it all the way through because it might gum up on the reels, So,
God, it's so dangerous.
Yeah,
because you're like, oh shit! But shake your booty, it just fell apart.
It's like if you were, the Mona Lisa's on the wall and it falls on the floor, and you're like, oh.
Or if the paint just started peeling off it.
Yeah. But you pick it up and you're like, did anything happen to this? Is this still the same? It's like it's crazy. There's just so much to deal with all that stuff. And people say, well, why isn't there more? We don't have a huge staff of people doing this. There's one guy that's the archivist who's constantly going through the vault and getting the new stuff. And then we find what's on the tapes. Because that's another thing is the tape label might say what's on it, but you put it on, it might be something else. Because Frank was notorious for taking stuff from the road and saying, "Oh, I didn't like that show."
Oh, I heard that he would tape over the live shows.
Yeah, and it'd be stuff from the studio that was never documented.
Oh my God! Yeah, because Scott told me they would tape all the shows.
Yeah,
and then he would just go over them. Yeah. And so there's like none of these great live shows. Like,
well, there's a ton of great shows, but what he deemed not releasable, he would just go over it and record other new crazy stuff. So,
PMRC. Before we go, that was pretty wild times. You're what are you? 44?
I'm 45.
45. I'm 48. What am I? 40. I'm 48 till next week. I can't even remember. You remember when you asked your parents how old they were and they don't know? You just forget.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It's not one of those things you focus on.
At the PMRC, at the end of the day, it kind of helped record sales, right?
Well, it was kind of an obvious thing if you think of the psychology for the average person. If you say, "Hey, don't touch that; it's hot," most people are "Oh, you mean this?" and then they burn themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you tell them there's something on here you shouldn't listen to, they're going to listen to it. But the thing about that whole scenario was the reality of what was really happening there was the record industry was trying to pass this blank tape tax thing. There was something in it for them for recorded media. See, what was happening was the CDs and all that stuff were new at that time, but blank data discs and all these things at a certain point were going to. It was known that was going to be for computers and all that stuff. That format was going to have. It was going to far surpass any album sales, but the recording industry was going to get a piece of the blank data.
I gotcha. Because they know that people are going to record a record on it.
But so under all this other stuff that's up here to keep you talking about this, they were going to try to pass this thing to give people, So it's one of those.
It's a shake and fake.
Yeah, total. But the dumbest thing about it was that. You look at all the hubbub that was created over that, and people saying, "Oh yeah, I want my kids to be able to know what's going to be on there," and it's like, well, why don't you just sit and listen to stuff with your kids? It's about parenting. This label has nothing to do with anything. But then the fact that any person was able to take Judas Priest or Ozzy Osbourne to court because of their music to say that it affected their child. Is just insane.
Suicides, all that stuff. It's just crazy, right?
I mean, imagine that. You write a song and somebody sues you because they're a bad parent and they...
Yeah. That's crazy, right?
But it happened.
I know. It's crazy. Yeah, it was great that your father was involved and some of the rockers that went on, like Dee Snider and stuff, They were just killing these people because they thought they were just going to be drug addict idiots coming in there going, yeah, man. And they're just spewing out knowledge on Tipper Gore and these fools. And one of the biggest fools was the guy from the Beach Boys, Mike Love, which I thought
he came in on the side of
that's
the
what I'm
PMRC.
saying. That's what I'm saying. He could eat a dick as far as I'm concerned because he's just destroying the freedom of speech and the art, and he's up there backing them. Yeah. Like, what a dick. You know what I mean?
It was pretty lame, but the thing that I always remember, because I went to the actual Senate proceedings, where Frank testified and all that, and I remember he just had the most awesome demeanor in those kind of situations, because he would just very matter-of-factly say stuff. He was a very eloquent speaker. But one of his opening salvos in the thing was he said that the treatment of this issue by the PMRC and the other people involved in this was like treating dandruff by decapitation.
That's the genius of him, right? Yeah. It's so great.
And it was just awesome to hear him go out and say that. But, he's the guy that would say the thing you wished you would have said if you could have thought of it after the fact. But he would say it in the moment. So he was on a show once a long time ago. There was a guy that was a guy named, I think his last name was Pine. I can't remember his first name. Anyway, I think it was Joe Pine. He had either a radio show or some early TV thing. But the story that Frank told is that he went on this show, and this guy was notorious for really having it in for anybody who had long hair.
Oh yeah.
But he had suffered an injury in a war, and he had a wooden leg. So anyway,
wooden leg.
So he says to Frank, as soon as he's interviewing him, he says, "So, I guess with your long hair, that makes you a lady." And
my God.
Frank said, "Well, I guess with your wooden leg, that makes you a table."
Oh, my God. Dude, that is so great, man. Yeah. I love that. It's just, that's the genius of him right there, right?
But that's how he was 24/7.
At what point does he say you call me Frank and not Dad? Because
we just always did. There was never an edict. I'm not sure how or why. It just was that way.
Yeah, because nobody else does that at our age. You know what I mean? Calls their dad by their name, unless it was a stepdad. Jim's over here.
Yeah.
Like, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my kids call me Dad. I never said anything about you have to call me Dweezil. But every now and again they will like say, "Hey, Dweezil," and it's just funny to me, because my name does sound pretty weird.
Yeah, but, all the name Diva got off easy.
Yeah.
Right, except for people could be like, "You're just being a diva." But whoa, I'm glad you came over, dude.
Thanks, man.
It's funny. I see you probably once every 5 years of my life, but it's great that you still make music. And I saw you a couple years ago. Zappa Meets Zappa was
Zappa, yeah.
Yeah, it does Zappa, incredible. I thought it was great, and I'm looking forward to hearing your new record. When's it coming out?
The end of April. It's a pledge campaign, so people can still pledge on there. But it's
what is the pledge campaign?
It's pledgemusic.com / it's got the / Dweezil or Dweezil Zappa, I think, in it. So you can
I'll put the link on the site when this goes up.
Yeah, and it's a record of my own music, but it's got a bit of everything on there. It's really quite a crazy.
Now, what are you going to do? You're going to tour this record and do the Zappa thing at the same time?
I don't really know what's going to happen as far as touring this record. We won't know until the record comes out and we see what kind of response it gets. But I do have a lot of touring for Zappa Plays Zappa. We're doing a tour that starts at the end of March that is for the One Size Fits All record, where we play the entire record top to bottom, and then a bunch of other stuff.
I'm doing this thing. I'm hosting this jam every Wednesday at Lucky Strike. Come down and let's do Mean Streets.
Mean Streets. That'd be a challenge.
Now you can play that.
I can, but it doesn't.
I saw you played like Eruption or something on the ship. What?
Yeah.
And you had a striped Eddie guitar, right?
Yeah, I can play that stuff, but it's not like it's easy.
I know, but let's do it once. That way it's like, all right, we did it. That was my dream band back in fucking I was 20.
Yeah.
It's me, Dweezil, and two other guys.
One of these days, I got to relearn it to make sure I can play it the way it's played, because I don't want to go up there and just do my own thing with it, which is everybody's excuse for I can't play it, so I do my own thing with it.
You play SG now?
Yeah, mostly.
Hey, your dad played SG, right?
Yeah.
You play just like a standard SG?
I have one that's a replica of my dad's guitar, so
that's dope.
It's got some special things. But I do have a one of a kind SG that I just got the other day, a year in the making. It's a fretless guitar, a fretless SG that Gibson made for me, that has a sustain device in it, and it also has auto tune.
Oh, yeah.
So what I can do is I can actually play this like a normal guitar. I can play chords on it, because on a fretless guitar you can't play chords.
Right.
There's some chords you could play relatively.
Well, just open like a one finger press corn style.
Well, there's certain shapes that you can get, like a major triad, the top half and certain things that can work, but. With this, because of the microcomputer of the auto-tune thing in the guitar, you can actually play it like a normal guitar and play any kind of chord perfectly in tune.
With no frets.
No frets, but I also have that sustain. So
right.
It's like playing a violin or a cello, because you can have sustained notes. I can take a chord and just move it, and it's just moving like it's a slide.
Did you come up with that?
I said, hey, I want to build this guitar, and they I got all these things put into it. It's kind of a engineering thing, but the craziest part is basically it feels like whatever you play is now elastic. Like you could take a chord.
That just.
It's the craziest thing, because any note I can just hold on to and sustain, and it's wild. But even on this totally clean sound.
Wow.
You don't even have to have distortion. It'll just sustain perfectly with.
I got to see that thing.
It's incredible.
I'm such a gear freak.
Well, I'm playing it on my record, so people will hear it for the first time. It's essentially a totally new instrument. There's nothing like it.
You have a name for the record?
I don't really know yet. I'm considering naming it after this street in Sicily that is the street where my family, my father's side of the family emigrated from this place in Partinico, Sicily. And the street where his family lived on, there was this tiny little house on the street, which was recently renamed to be Via Frank Zappa. So it's Frank Zappa Street there, but it was originally Via Zamata.
Oh, that's a cool name.
So
man.
I might, make it Via Zamata.
It sounds like a Mars Volta record. That's great.
It's pretty
you guys
cool.
full blown Italian?
Well, Sicilian is different than Italian. If you ask.
If I watch The Godfather 1 and 2, of course, we know that.
I would say that, my mom's side is not all Italian, but yeah, we got some heavy duty Sicilian.
Your mom's still alive?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. How old is she now?
70.
Wow, 70.
Yeah.
In Laurel Canyon still?
Yep, same old place.
Wow. That's cool, man. Well, thanks for coming over, dude. I love you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you play.
Yeah, well.
Hopefully Scott will play with you again. I heard he played out in Ventura.
We did a tour where he played some stuff on one of the tours. It was great. We did a lot of early Mother stuff.
That's so cool. Thanks for coming by, man.
No
I'll see you later.
Thanks.
Right on. There he is right there. Dweezil Zappa, guys. Thanks for tuning in.